and we're going to have a very interesting session chaired by Dr. Khaled Toukan. Khaled, you have the floor.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We have a very interesting session on energy diversification, a key to Jordan's development. This is very interesting because really, Jordan can present a good case study on energy diversification. And indeed, probably many countries around the world, not just in developing countries, even some developed countries, do sometimes have a challenge when it comes to energy diversification. We have a very interesting and qualified experts who will be presenting their views on this topic. After my introduction, we will start with the topic on fossil fuels in the new changing regional dynamics. And this is very important because indeed the Middle East and the Arab world in particular have been known to have almost more than 50% of oil and gas resources in the globe, and was the main source of these fuels for most of the countries around the globe, in particular the industrialized countries. However, definitely there is a change in dynamics. And this is clearly reflected by the decline in the oil prices, which basically reflects the dynamics of supply and demand. Clearly, oil has dropped down from more than $100 per barrel a few years ago to 50 and went below 50. What this indicates is that probably oil is not as much demand as it used to be probably a decade ago. And there are new modes of energy generation that are competing and coming into the supplied market. In particular, renewables, wind and solar, nuclear fission, where more than 69 nuclear power plants are currently being constructed around the globe, with China leading this, with the construction of 40 nuclear power plants simultaneously. But also other modes of energy generation are coming. Oil shale, for example, or tar sands in Canada, is also becoming a major player in the market. Shale gas in the United States, where new discoveries with fracking and horizontal drilling have also provided a new source of fuel which was not present a decade ago. So all this has introduced new inputs to the energy supply chain, and we find that the dynamics of oil in this region in particular, and to some extent gas, has dropped, and we believe it will continue to drop. So on this topic, we have Professor Bruno Weilmiller, who will be addressing this. And unfortunately, I think Engineer Amani Azzam will not be coming. So after your presentation, we will have more time for Q&A, and I think from the audience, because this is a very, very important topic, and I'm sure a very interesting topic in terms of what is taking place now on the global scene. Then we move ahead to a fresh and new perspective for nuclear energy in Jordan and abroad. The moderator will be Dr. Bruno Lissier, and I will be giving a keynote presentation on the development of nuclear power in Jordan for half an hour. This will be followed by a keynote address by Alain Bouga, nuke advisor, and previously the head of CEA in France, who will talk about an immense small modular reactor technology. I can't read the name of this project in French, maybe. Synergy, but it's written in French, okay, not English, sorry. And then we will end by another keynote from Dr. Bruno Lissieux from EDF France on an overview from a European electrician on the perspective of the electro-nuclear market worldwide. So we are touching upon these topics very interestingly in this. After the break, you will have the chance to also continue in further discussion and exploring the options on innovative renewable energy projects, particularly solar and wind. Well, before I give the floor to our first speaker, let me tell you about the energy diversification, and I actually touched upon this in my speech yesterday. Actually, Jordan would be a very good case study for energy diversification because, as I have mentioned, up till 2003, we were almost totally dependent on subsidized and cheap oil from Iraq. Then with Iraq falling into chaos and after US invasion of Iraq, we lost this. So we were left in the cold, and I will call this a major energy shock for the country. So suddenly you find yourself with no oil, which you were totally dependent, and it was almost 99%. So we didn't have coal, we didn't have maybe those days solar or wind, maybe it was not probably in the market as a viable technology, but definitely no gas, even one source of supply, it was Iraq. And then, as I've mentioned, we switched to Egyptian gas. Luckily, Egypt was doing gas exploration and they were seeking markets. And they looked at Jordan and other Arab countries around them to export the gas. So we basically quickly jumped to the ship of Egyptian gas and became also totally dependent on Egyptian gas. Up till 2010, more than 95% of our electricity was generated from Egyptian gas. It was nice sailing because the Egyptian gas was sold at a very low price. We were basically producing electricity at around 3 cents per kilowatt hour. It was a very good deal. And the government had a very good deal where they put a ceiling to the Egyptian gas price, because maybe some of you know that gas prices are indexed to oil. So they said no matter what the oil price would go up and down, we will seal it to a maximum barrel price of $18. So it was good days. And the Egyptians were happy because Jordan was a good market. But suddenly, the Egyptian gas was cut off because of the Egyptian revolution and Egypt fell into turmoil. So we were again left in the cold. And we were struggling, to replace overnight almost 98% of your supply for electricity from other sources. You didn't have the supply chain. You didn't have the currency and cash to buy it. So indeed, a comprehensive energy mix actually is the sound way to proceed for countries. And when I look at USA or Germany, for example, USA, you find nuclear taking 19% of the electricity market share, coal, you find hydropower, solar, wind, shale gas. All of these constitute to an energy mix. So if one of them is hit for one reason or the other, or the price goes wild, then you can probably switch to others and replace it. Germany too, for example, we know they rely on brown coal, lignite, coal, hydro, solar and wind now extensively, and nuclear, although it will be phased out in 2022. So all in all, actually, and particularly for developing countries, most countries in the Middle East rely totally, maybe, to some extent on one source of energy or the other. This is really a very precarious situation where you might find yourself overnight that you are cut off from this supply. So energy diversification is really a key word. A comprehensive energy mix is, I believe, and I lived this personally when I was a minister in 2011, really a key for ensuring energy security, energy sustainability, and your economic viability for energy supplies. So with that, I will stop and ask our first speaker to start your presentation.